Rear parking sensors fitted for less than £20. I couldn't believe it when I saw how cheap these things were, and they're easy to fit. This kit came from eBay for £12. I'm going to fit this to a black Fiesta, and this one from Amazon for £16. This is going on a silver Yaris. Both kits contain the same components, so let's open up the eBay kit and see what's inside. As you can see, there's plenty inside the box. How they can produce these and sell them at profit's incredible. Okay, so in this orange box we've got the hole saw, that's for cutting holes in the bumper. This is the control box and the speaker. The speaker's fitted to the inside of the car using this adhesive pad. There's a second adhesive pad for the LED monitor. We've got the red and black power cable. The LED monitor which fits to the dashboard. And this long cable which we're going to use to attach it to the control box. There's no way you're getting a wireless system at this price. And then the 4 colour-coded ultrasonic sensors. These kits come in a variety of colours to match the most common car colours, but you can spray them before you fit them if you want an exact colour match. The sensors send and receive ultrasound signals, which are then transported by these cables back to the control box. The control box works out the distance using echolocation and then emits an audible alarm, which increases in frequency as you get closer to an obstacle. If we look at a car with factory fitted sensors like this Audi, you can see that the 4 small circular sensors are fitted across the full width of the bumper, or fender as our American friends like to call it. So we're going to do the same thing on this 2010 Ford Fiesta. As you can see, I've marked the locations with small white stickers to show where we're going to drill the holes for the sensors. But before we fit the sensors, we need to remove the light cluster. This is because we're going to take the power feed for the control box from the reverse bulb fitting. To remove the light cluster from the Fiesta, there are 2 screws, one at the top and one at the bottom. We're going to remove the offside or driver's side cluster because this will make it easier for wiring the LED sensor, which we're going to fit onto the dashboard. Remove those 2 screws and then we're going to have to access the back of the light cluster. To access the back of the light cluster, you need to take out this screw in the plastic trim. And this allows you to get underneath and pull out the lining carpet and then get to the back of the light cluster. So if we put the camera under there, that's the power cable you can see there. If we follow that with my finger, that'll take it up to the connector block. And just above that, there's a wing nut. It's this wing nut that you need to unscrew to allow you to take the light fitting out completely. It's not the easiest thing to access, but once you've unscrewed it and taken it out, you can then remove the whole light cluster. It just pulls straight out. The only thing that's still connecting it with the car is the connector block. There's a block, and if we pull it out, there we go, we can take the light cluster away. Obviously every car is different. On the Yaris there were just 2 bolts, so there's one there and another one just below it. There we go. And if you take the nuts off, you can then just pull the light fitting out. The reason we need access to the light fittings is to take a power feed from the cable supplying the power to the reverse light bulb. To identify the live and the return for the reverse light, you need to look at the connectors. The positive will only connect to the reverse light, but the return, or earth, will have a connection to everything in the fitting. That's because they all feed back through the same wire which is connected to the chassis. So if we turn it over, you'll see the earth connects to the left-hand side of the connector block and the live to the right-hand side. The power cable needs soldering to these connectors. The red wire is the live, which needs connecting to the positive terminal, and the black wire needs connecting to the earth terminal. That's 2 ways of doing this. On the Yaris, I stripped off a bit of the insulation on the wires going to the connector block, and I then soldered the parking sensor wires to those. But on the Fiesta, I found it was actually easier to solder the wires onto the bulb connectors. The cable's then just slotted back through the gaps in the light fitting. You're now ready to fit the parking sensors, so using the hole saw that's supplied in the kits, you need to drill out the 4 holes in the bumper. To allow you to feed the cables through to the boot cavity, you'll need to loosen off the bumper, especially on the Fiesta. On the Yaris there was a grommet we could access from underneath. So take out the screw on either side. And then there are clips on the side of the bumper which you can detach and pull the bumper back. You don't have to totally remove it. The next stage is to locate the sensors in the holes. Just put them in gently, don't push them all the way in until you've tested them. Otherwise you'll have a right job getting them out afterwards if they don't work. And then you're going to have to get underneath the car and feed the cables across to the other side so we can take them up into the boot cavity. To do this, feed the wire through a gap between the chassis and the bumper and then look for a route through into the boot. There's a nice hole here underneath the light fitting, so we'll push the cable through there and out into the boot cavity. You then need to get back under the car and do the same thing for the other 3 sensors so that you've got all 4 wires going in through the same hole. Make sure that you've routed the cables so they're not going to get trapped when you refit the bumper. And then you can clip the bumper back into place, so push the clips in at the side and then you can screw it back into position. Getting the wires through into the boot cavity of the Yaris was even easier. There was a grommeted hole which we could get access to underneath and just simply push the cables through that. As you can see, that was in the bottom left corner of the boot as you look at the car from behind. You can now refit the light fitting. So on the Fiesta this involved clicking the connector into place and then feeding the power cable through into the boot cavity. Push the bulbs back into position in the light cluster and then you're going to reverse the process that you used to remove the light cluster. So push it into place, screw on the wing nut at the back of the fitting and then screw in the 2 screws that hold it in position. Clip the 4 sensor connectors into the 4 white ports in the control box and the power cable into the red port. It's obvious where they go. You can see here it'll fit quite nicely on the trim at the top of the boot space. The LED monitor has a long cable which clips into the remaining blue ports and then you can run that cable under the carpet and under the plastic trim. It's actually easier on the Yaris, the trim clips off very easily, down to the front of the car. Route the cable up the side of the dashboard and then you can stick the LED monitor onto the dash. There are 2 adhesive pads in the kit, a D-shaped one for fixing this LED monitor onto the dashboard and a rectangular one which you use for sticking the control box onto the inside of the boot where I showed you earlier. So that's everything wired up. We now need to test the sensors before pushing them into the final position. I tested each sensor individually by moving a box closer and closer to each individual sensor and monitoring the readout on the LED display on the dash. As you can hear, the alarm's clearly audible even when the speaker's located in the boot. Once you're happy that everything's working okay, you can push the sensors fully into place. They can be a little bit tight, but they do go in eventually. You can see we've got a very good colour match with the Fiesta. And then using the supplied adhesive pad, you can fit the speaker into its final position in the boot. Make sure it's secure and tidy up and tuck away any trailing cables and we're done. Unobtrusive, effective parking sensors fitted for less than £20. Now obviously the cable routing is going to be slightly different for each type of car, but the principle's the same. It's dead simple. So I hope you found this useful. If you have, leave a thumbs up. Any questions, leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to Big Ted's Home and Garden. We'll see you soon.